I want to go ahead and get to the second one. Obviously, you referred to the 10% issue for the PRC, but then when you look at the other concern that was raised, it was that there was a lack of content regarding the fiscals of the bill. When you take a look at how this process has been done, and they've said, well, the PIB it was too voluminous, it couldn't go at once, we have to chop it up into 4 pieces. Now, of course, you have the PIGB, the governance bill, the PIAB, the administrative bill, the PIFB, the financial bill, and of course the host communities bill, PHCB. Now, if you're going to do it piece by piece, as has been done here, can you actually achieve that if the problems being raised are that there are issues that would have arisen in other aspects of the other bills that are not inclusive in these individual pieces? It's almost like giving somebody 25% of the picture and asking them to make a judgment on it. Is it just a flawed process overall?
No. Mr. President is withholding assent on the bill before him. Other bills are not yet before Mr. President. Other ones containing these are not just before him. And he has stated only the reason that he has reservations about, and not the entire content of the bill. He has stated about 3 or 4. And the other one is the presentation of the Petroleum Equalization Fund. And that agency is to have 5%. And in addition,
I'm about to go there,
yeah.
But I want to be very clear here. We understand that he has only seen one of the 4 bills.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the National Assembly's, in their wisdom, they felt that we need to chop this up into 4 pieces and do it piece by piece.
Yeah.
I'm asking you whether you think that is the correct approach. If understanding the oil and gas sector holistically, it would be difficult for, say, the executive to assess one bill without knowing the contents of the other. Is it a feasible mode of operation in this regard?
Well, we will only comment on a bill that is before Mr. President. Mr. President, the others are still work in progress. They are pending before the legislature. And when Mr. President assents to the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, and there are other bills on that sector which conflicts with this, will draw the attention of the legislature in a manner that will eliminate the conflict. Because the executive is very interested in having a governance bill and laws in the sector that accord with international best practice. And let me assure members of the public, the presidency has a standard mode of operating when bills like this come. And that is that if there are so many bills, if there are bills and there are a few of the issues, sometimes we have a back channel which we relate with the legislature. And we've been relating with them on this matter, drawing attention. And it would have been sorted out but for the break of the legislature, well deserved, the annual vacation. And it was considered that if you draw this attention and the time lapses within which you are to assent or withhold assent, and the president does not write back, it will be taken that it has lapsed on the table of the president and it will be held against the president. So we had to communicate this. But we believe that when the legislature comes, just in the manner that we worked on the Electoral Act, drawing their attention to what were regarded as some impurities, that this will be resolved and the legislature will and the executive will have agreement on some of these areas and assent will be considered.
One of the more controversial clauses of this bill that was sent to the president was the clause that all petroleum products in the country sold within the Federation shall be, kind of saddled with a 5% levy. Of course, that would be something that would be carried by all Nigerians to fund the Petroleum Equalization Fund, another agency. How much of that played into the president's decision to decline assent? Did it factor in at all?
In fact, it was one of the major ones, because if the commission will have 5%, the entire regulatory commission, and then Petroleum Equalization Fund alone also has 5% of the entire petroleum product that is consumed in the entire country, in addition to other sources of fund. Mr. President considered that this would be too enormous for the country and for Nigerians to bear, one, and it is against the policy of the federal government in the governance of the petroleum industry and the fiscal policy of the federal government, which intends money available to be used not just by those agencies or commissions, but for the entire country. Because this is an agency of the federal government, it shouldn't be made to turn as if it were the federal government itself. So this is one of the areas Mr. President considered that it was not proper and it was not in the interest of the country.
Senator Inong, at this juncture, we're going to throw it over to our Lego studio where my colleague Chamberlain has a question for you and is standing by also with another guest. Chamberlain?
Well, yes, Ajay, perhaps I'll just throw it to Mr. Funsho Lawal, who is an oil and gas professional. So they're just here to shed some light on this bill to help us understand it better. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, listening to the Senator there, while he was talking about Section 26, he went through that section and talking about, yes, the PRC gets 10%, but all of these other associated costs, I don't see any figure to it. Could you just help us out here? How much are they going to get beyond the 10%? I'm talking about the PRC still.
Right. My understanding of the PRC as the agency that will become the new regulator under the PIGB, replacing the DPR, is that revenues that they generate, that they want to get 10% of all those revenues from licensing, from permits, from approvals. And I think that's where the executive have an issue that there will be too much of money being withheld to the detriment of the federal, state, local government, and the FCT.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Now, you see, for me, I am not too deep into the breakdown. You know, I look at it from a very high level of the PIB itself. It's taken us a 17-year journey, you know, to when the PIB's idea was mooted in 2000 in October, when the government at the time formed the Oil and Gas Implementation Reform Committee, the OIGC, you know, that's 2000, we're in 2018.
Yeah.
So basically, it's taken 18 years to get to where we are, and we've just dealt with 25% of the matter. We still have the fiscal reform bills, which really drives investments.
Okay. Let me ask Senator, because I just trying to understand this a little further before we'll now come to you and look at what do we do, how do we proceed.